welcome to Telesur English. I am Estefania Bravo and this is From the South. Protests are taking place all around Chile at this hour, and they are by no means limited to the capital. Demonstrations now are much more wide-ranging than they were last week, when protests began against a now suspended metro fare increase. That action saw the participation of high school and university students. Large crowds have now filled the streets in the city of Concepcion, and mass demonstrations are also growing in Santiago. Streets continue to see heavy militarization, and many protesters are directly confronting the national police after many videos of police repression went viral on social media over the weekend. And in the middle of the repression riot, police took deliberate aim at Telesur's reporters. Rubber bullets hit the cameraman's backpack and transmission equipment, but fortunately no one was hurt. This was the moment it happened.
Vamos al puente, cuidado. Ay, cuidado. Nos están disparando directo. Mira, enfoca. ¿Te dio? Golpeó al camarógrafo. ¿Se dan cuenta? Esto es. Esto es. Acaban de golpear al camarógrafo de Telesur. Nos están disparando.
A new curfew will be imposed at 6 p.m. local time in Valparaíso, according to an announcement made by Rear Admiral Juan Andrés de la Maza.
Muy buenas tardes a todos.
I have decided to move forward the curfew for the Valparaíso region, except for the province of Isla de Pascua and Comuna de Juan Fernández. Starting from 1800, due to the incidents that are taking place on the cities of our region. Also starting at 1800, there will be no public transportation, including the metro. This is in order to guarantee a safe transportation for all citizens who went to work today morning.
Dock workers at Chile's 20 ports went on strike in solidarity with other protesters. The main ports in Valparaíso and Concepcion were shut down beginning at 10 a.m., and dockers began marches to demand an end to the state of emergency and the repression against students, workers, and poor communities.
Good morning, comrades in Chile. Due to us dockers, the Ventana terminal has been completely shut down by the Dock Workers Union. We are completely against all the repression carried out by the dictator Piñera. We are a free country, and we dockers are always at the forefront of all the social demands. We are with the citizens who are struggling. Long live the struggle, no going back.
Let's hear from our correspondent in Santiago, Alejandro Kirik.
Right, I'm standing here now today, this moment, next to the presidential palace on my right. These people are coming back from Plaza Italia or Italy Square, where the main demonstrations have taken place. Many thousands of people showed up today for these demonstrations, more than yesterday or the day before. Many have been injured by police shootings, and the army for the first time showed up during daylight to support the police. The atmosphere the government is trying to create is fear, but these people don't seem to be very impressed by that. Curfew is about to be enforced an hour from now. These people are going back home on foot because there is no public transportation. The situation in the country remains very, very tense.
We thank Alejandro for that report. The Chilean government is again blaming criminals for the social crisis that has engulfed the country. Alejandro Kirik reports.
For President Sebastián Piñera, these demonstrators are nothing more than a band of criminals at war with Chile.
We are at war against a powerful, implacable enemy who doesn't respect anybody or anything, who is ready to use unlimited violence even when that means the loss of human life, who is ready to burn down hospitals, subway stations and supermarkets, just to cause as much damage as possible.
So far, 13 people have been killed and over 2,000 have been arrested in the protests since the crisis began last Friday. At an assembly on Sunday, the main social movements threw their weight behind the demonstrations.
We are calling a national stoppage this Monday. All the social movements should take to the streets, from the communities, from the schools, from everywhere.
We understand that this is a historic moment. For the first time, we are showing that this is all the result of a structural violence. The privatization of water in Chile is the result of a model that has been implemented for a long time and now has students, feminists, all of us out in the protest.
We have a cowardly right-wing government that doesn't know how to lead the country. This uprising has exploded after years of mistreatment, abuse of power and deaths in a supposed democracy, because they never listen to the people.
In Santiago, Plaza Italia is once again the epicenter of the protests throughout the day. Anxious military commanders hoped the 7 p.m. curfew would bring them to an end.
Disorder is again trying to take over the streets, and that is something we need to avoid. So from 7 p.m., we hope calm will return and everyone will go home.
But the curfew came, and the demonstrators were still there.
I'm struggling because we have had 50 years of armed robbery. They look us in the face and rob us. 20 years of dictatorship and 30 years of a democracy that isn't democracy, but a covert dictatorship. We have to borrow money and go into debt just to buy bread.
Into the night, when there are no patrols, people still come out to protest. But these young people didn't have much luck. In Santiago, the darkest hours of the night belong to the military.
A large gathering is taking place now in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Hundreds of people, including Chilean expats and Argentinians, have now gathered in front of the Chilean embassy in Argentina's capital, following the report of repression against citizens in the neighboring country. And overseas, a similar demonstration was held in London. Our correspondent Pablo Navarrete was there outside the Chilean embassy.
Here outside the Chilean embassy in London, around 300 people have gathered to protest the actions of the Sebastián Piñera government in Chile. Over the past few days, we've seen images of serious violations by the security services against protesters who have initially come out to protest the increase in transport fares, but this has spread into a more generalized uprising against various government policies and perceived injustices in the country. Here in London, around 300 people have come, students, Chilean, exiles of first generation, second generation, and also members of the British trade union movement and other sectors of British society to express their opposition to what is going on in Chile today and the actions and the grave violations of human rights by the Sebastián Piñera government.
Chileans who live in France also held a demonstration in front of Chile's embassy in Paris to show solidarity with protesters back home. Demonstrators said that they too are protesting against the actions which President Sebastián Piñera had taken on the dissenting citizens, describing them as undemocratic.
Now, we have seen that the Chilean president is capable of taking anti-democratic measures against the Chilean people. So this has to be denounced with all the might necessary to stop it.
Moving on, Haitian President Jovenel Moïse is under mounting pressure to step down as protests continue throughout the country. Hundreds of Haitians, under the watch of heavily armed police and military personnel, took to the streets of the capital, Port-au-Prince, on Sunday. Protesters marched alongside the float of Prophet Mackinson, a popular and controversial Haitian religious leader. One protester was wounded during the demonstration. At least 17 people have been killed and 189 injured in month-long protests on the island. Haitians' accusation that President Moïse is to be blamed for fuel shortages, inflation, and a lack of basic goods have grown louder each day.
If you had a little bit of morality, a little bit of nationalism, if you had a little bit of love for the country, then please hand over the keys, because the people cannot stand it any longer. We are asking you to step down. Step down. Let the people go. We cannot take it any longer. Jovenel, step down.
When there are so many citizens in the streets to demand the resignation of a president, that is the expression of the exercising of popular sovereignty. The international community has no right to oppose the exercising of this sovereignty of the Haitian people. nor do they have the right to continue supporting a head of state rejected by the Haitian people.
We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Vote counting continues in Bolivia following Sunday's presidential election. Supporters of President Evo Morales celebrated after his victory on Sunday, but it is still not certain whether the election will go to a second round. Official preliminary results with 83% of votes counted gave the incumbent president 45% of the vote, with Carlos Mesa in second place with 38%. President Morales needs an advantage of 10 points to avoid a second round. With 17% of votes yet to be counted, including many rural votes, that remains a possibility still. But if the current tendency remains unchanged, the first two candidates will go to a runoff on December 15th. Speaking after polls closed, President Morales reaffirmed his confidence in a first-round victory, saying that votes from rural areas could make all the difference.
I'm convinced with the results we have. If we go back over the past, the opposition never got more than 30%, and here we have 50%. I'm sure. I'll tell you again, the rural areas are going to keep guaranteeing this process of change. Brothers and sisters, I want to thank you again for your presence, for your efforts, for your commitment.
For his part, opposition candidate Carlos Mesa said that a runoff vote is inevitable.
We're convinced that a second round is inevitable. All the facts that we have from both the Supreme Electoral Court and the Esencia, the company that did a coordination for 4 television stations, establishes the difference in votes of less than 10 points, much less in the case of the Esencia, and therefore the second round is a fact.
Venezuela's government and representatives from small opposition parties have established 3 complementary working groups tasked on the issues related to political parties, electoral reform, and the economy. The national dialogue began in September with agreements on efforts to work towards peace and Venezuela's economic development. As far as the electoral group goes, parties have programmed 3 fundamental sub-issues on the agenda. First, a return to the system of proportional representation, electoral guarantees having to do with international observation and internal audits, and the formation of a new National Electoral Council. Caracas, Venezuela was the host of a meeting of social movements from across the world during the International Congress of Communes. After their encounter, participants also marched in the city to show their support for Venezuela and their rejection of imperialist attacks.
Venezuela hosted the International Congress of Communes and Social Movements, where activists and politicians from all over the world came together to strengthen their fight against imperialism and neoliberalism.
There is no power without people organizing, and there is no organizing without the participation of citizens in political and economic decisions. In the past few years, we have seen how Venezuela increased popular participation, something that's hard to achieve under neoliberalism in countries like Peru, Chile, or Colombia.
Projects are developed in each commune in areas such as agriculture, education, and culture, and little by little, they grow to benefit whole communities.
Communes are a productive sector where people from different political backgrounds come together. What's important in communes is to help each other and to produce as part of a collective.
Communes or nothing, said Hugo Chavez in 2008 when he called on his supporters to promote the Commune project. This was the start of a struggle for those who want to develop socialism in this manner.
A commune is the maximum organizational expression of popular power. It's the true transformation of the socialist model and the legacy of President Hugo Chavez Frias.
We have evolved from a representative democracy to a participatory democracy. This has led to the creation of communal councils and to 4 communes as part of the socialist project. We have left behind the bourgeois state, the capital state, the one that plants hunger and misery.
In communes, millions of Venezuelans have found a powerful and creative way to resist political and economic attack.
We need to tell the world what we are doing in Venezuela, especially now when we face a blockade, an economic war. We need to show everyone how we resist. Our people resist because we have organized in communes.
More than 48,000 communal councils and 3 communes make up the popular power of the Bolivarian Revolution.
Trinidad and Tobago's National Security Minister says the police service is investigating members of the opposition party, United National Congress, over alleged criminal collusion. The opposition leader has since challenged him to identify those officials. The revelation was made on a political platform ahead of December's local government elections.
It has come to my attention that very high-ranking members of the opposition, the UNC opposition, at the highest levels, at the deputy political leader level, former attorney general level, senator level, former senator level, sitting member of parliament, are engaging in active conversation and communication and interaction with the criminal elements in our society. The person who is engaging in that communication, conversation, is a member of parliament, an elective member of parliament from the deep south.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley has revealed that he was a target of an assassination plot back in 2015 in the lead up to the general election of that year. He says 2 hitmen were offered $2 million to kill him. In response, the opposition called those claims a political distraction.
Because persons have paid money. They hired a killer to kill me. The first killer refused and determined that somebody has to know this, and went and told a government official. The government official came and told us. We told the police.
It is simply a desperate attempt on his part to gain public sympathy and demonize and criminalize the opposition UNC in the face of his completely non-existent political credibility after having absolutely nothing to show for their 4 years in office.
We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Protests continue in Catalonia as hundreds of citizens have staged a sit-in demonstration outside Spain's government delegation in Barcelona. This demonstration comes as the Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez is visiting the region. These demonstrators are demanding that Sánchez hold talks with Catalonian President Quim Torra. Over the weekend, the regional government said Torra had requested a meeting with Sánchez during his visit, but it's still unclear if it will happen, as so far Sánchez only delivered a harshly worded letter to the Catalonian president.
The Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez is in Barcelona. He came to visit the injured police officers, and he is not even picking up the phone, and for the Catalan regional president to find solutions. It is shameful that he does not even want to take a phone call from a representative of the Catalan government.
Pedro Sánchez has come, and what we want is politics to help us to solve problems and not to create more trouble. We want him to sit so we can talk. Things are sorted out by talking, and politicians should give us an example of that.
A London court has turned down a request by the legal team for WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange for a delay in his U.S. extradition case. Assange's attorneys had requested an extra month to submit evidence, but the judge refused to extend the expected proceedings and told Assange his extradition case would begin on February 25th, 2020. At the end of the hearing, the judge asked Assange if he knew what was happening, and he replied, "Not exactly," and said he was unable to think properly. Assange is facing 18 counts in the U.S., including conspiring to hack government computers and violating an espionage law. Meanwhile, many expressed concern about Assange's deteriorating health and well-being following his court appearance.
Julian himself spoke, and he said that he had been denied the basic tools to prepare his own case. Denied documents, denied computer, and he spoke in a very, very weak voice. Julian's health has deteriorated since he's been in Belmarsh, and that was evident. But what Julian's lawyers, their main point is that under the extradition treaty between Britain and the United States, this extradition is unlawful. There's no question about that, because there is one very explicit statute in this treaty that says there is that no one can be extradited if they are charged with a political offence, and this under law is a political offence. What the US want him for. So the whole thing should have been thrown out of court and Julian walking out.
Moving on, the Prime Minister of Lebanon, Saad al-Hariri, has announced the approval of an economic reform package in a bid to defuse the biggest protest the country has seen in decades. The package includes a 50%
necessary for the last 2 years. These measures have been approved and include the budget approved today, together with other measures not concerning the budget. 50% reduction in salaries of current and ex-lawmakers and ministers, for a reduction in the budget of the Development and Reconstruction Committee, the Fund for the Displaced and the Committee of the South by 70%. These decisions are not bartering. They're not to ask you to stop protesting or expressing anger. This is something that you decide. And we're not giving you a deadline, and I will not allow anyone to threaten or intimidate you.
Hundreds of people demonstrated in Kinshasa against corruption in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The protesters called for the DR Congo government to investigate an alleged scandal where $15 million is reported to have not been remitted to Treasury. The government has already started probing the case. This is the first corruption case to be brought to the attention of the new President Felix Tshisekedi since he came into power this year.
With regard to the 15 million, we ask that all those suspect of being involved in this be suspended as a precautionary measure, so that the judge can work in peace.
And with that story, we've come to the end of this news brief. These and other stories, as always, find them on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Estefania Bravo. Thank you for watching.
From here to beyond the South, from here to the Caribbean or further north, where can I see news connecting the whole South? From Washington, from Mexico, from Caracas, from Quito, from Havana.